My name is Jay Lin Yang, and I'm a 17-year-old high school senior currently committed to Yale Law School. The events I'm about to cover transpired over the last 3 months. Before I get into all of that, I feel obligated to let you in on my family's backstory, at least the backstory I always believed. The Yang family was your average middle school American immigrant household. There were 4 of us: Dad, Mom, my sister's son, and me. My father came from a very poor, isolated village in China, fleeing to America by way of ship harbored in the Vietnam, where he had been working for a few years. He had never explained what kind of work had brought him there, but I never asked. Vietnam is where he met my mother, a daughter of a rich man. I never knew any of my Chinese or Vietnamese relatives. My father kept his life in the East a secret from me in hopes that me and my sister would grow up to be successful Americans, not the financially struggling Chinese man he had been in his past. All I know is that he had an old uncle in southern Maryland, so that is where he and my mother went. A year later, I was born. Growing up in a diverse state like Maryland wasn't bad, and when Son was born 2 years later, she quickly became my best friend. We would tell each other secrets and play games like hide and seek and tag. Mom and Dad wanted us to succeed, so they scolded us when we did wrong and they praised us when we did right. When I was younger, I would resent their strictness. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate it. They created all sorts of rules for us to follow to help us stay on the right track. It was a good life until 3 months ago. Now that I've bored you with some of my family's story, let me get to my point. Within our household, we had one major rule, which Dad emphasized more than all the others: never go into the attic. I never knew why we weren't supposed to go into the attic, but my dad was a no-nonsense sort of guy, and I always trusted his judgment on the matter. The first time he told me this rule, I must have been 6 or 7, and eventually it simply became part of my psyche. Most young boys have no reason to enter their attic anyway, besides sheer curiosity. Life went on normally, and I created many great memories with my family and in my house. I became star quarterback on my school football team. Go Dolphins. First violin in the orchestra. A lead in many of our drama productions, all while maintaining a 4.0 with honors. The son of a poor Chinese immigrant, I was on track to lead an extremely successful life and make my family proud. That was my life before 3 months ago. Now, things are different. You may have already guessed it, but the event which changed my path had to do with the attic. Now, I was always willing to follow the rule without question, but my little sister is something else. She was only 15, but had become very rebellious toward my parents. She went to parties every other night, wore alternative clothing and nose rings, painted her nails black, and a myriad of other things to get under my mother's skin. I never judged my sister for her choices. But until 3 months ago, they weren't choices which decided life and death outcomes. 3 months ago, my sister snuck up into the attic with her best friend Lola. I only found out because she woke me up with a shove on the shoulder in the wee hours of the night. Jay, wake up, she had whispered. You gotta come see this. Groggily, I slid out from under my blanket's warm embrace to find the flimsy ladder to the attic down, a pile of dust and wood chips on the floor beneath. My heart dropped. Dad said to never. I don't care what Dad said. Come see. I followed her up to the scuttle, and on the plywood floor of the dark, dusty attic was a six-pointed pentagram drawn with blood. An old, crumbling tome, thick as a brick, sat on Lola's lap as she flipped through the pages. I felt a strange coldness in that attic, so cold I could see my own breath. I had never felt that way before. It wasn't the cold I hadn't felt, but the strange presence that came with it. The star on the floor had 6 points, I later noticed, and at each point there was a wax candle with wicks old and dry. I don't like this, I told Son. She ignored me, proceeding to light each of the candles. Lola flipped to one of the pages of the tome, which depicted the same pentagram and candles on its dry, yellowed paper. Stop this. This is wrong, was all I could muster, but my voice had grown weak. Somehow, the attic's ladder was up, and I was trapped with my mad sister and her friend. When the last candle was lit, a pillar of red smoke rose from the center of the star, and a whisper in some horribly dark language spoke from within it. Somehow, I understood it. Speak what you will, my child, and it shall be given. Speak what you desire, and for blood I shall provide. I shivered, cold prickles dancing up and down my spine. My throat felt clogged and I could not speak. My sister seemed composed and unimpressed, as if she was familiar with such things. Stop this, Son, I said under my breath. I was petrified. I wish I could explain how I felt, but it's a feeling you can't know until you feel it. Nonchalantly, Lola spoke. Great Lord, gift me with $20,000, and I shall give you the blood of my flesh. She said it in the same dark tongue. Rising to her feet, Lola cut her forearm with a steak knife, sending droplets of crimson blood onto the smoky pillar. In an instant, the smoke diminished and a stack of Benjamins stood in its place. I was unfrozen, but still felt the strange coldness of the room. What the fuck is wrong with you idiots? Why are you playing with fire like this? The money is not worth this dark power. I was so angry with my sister for being so foolish. Son simply smiled, picking up the stack of cash and fanning it out for him to look at. $200 bills flashed before him, and Lola wiped her bloody arm with a rag behind her. Look at what we did, Son said happily. It was then that I noticed various scars across each of the girls' arms. They've done this before, I thought to myself. Dad better not find out. Don't do this again, I said sternly. Without waiting for a response, I opened the scuttle and left the attic, making my way back to my bedroom. Since that night, I've slept horribly. Every night has been plagued with morbid nightmares and restless sleep. Weeks went by, and with almost every night my sister would bring her friends up into the attic, and each day afterward would have a new designer bag or a new pair of Jordans. She had to be discreet with whatever she spawned so that our parents wouldn't notice. However, I began to notice bad side effects. As her closet grew fuller, her body grew pale and gaunt, and she became less and less pleasant to be around. I was worried about her, but I had so much going on in my life that I couldn't stop to help. I guess I could have, but I digress. Last month, the first happening occurred. Son had brought over two friends in addition to Lola, who coincidentally also played on the team with me, Ty and Marcos, both running backs and brothers. They were tall and light-skinned. I remember them being chill guys, your typical stoner athletes, but I was never close to them. We have a big team. Ty maintained twists, while Marcos had a fade. Both smelled of weed when I caught them walking through the hall with the two girls. "What are you guys doing here?" I asked them angrily. "Chill, bro. We came to see your little ghost friend," Marcos said, his eyes pink from his high. I shook my head and left them to their business. It wasn't worth it. About 2 hours later, I heard a thud come from the attic. I quickly jumped out of bed and climbed up the scuttle. Naked, Ty and Lola were embraced on the floor, both of their throats pulsating with blood. There was a silhouette of something other than human with hooves and horns eating Marco's flesh. I was in shock. I had no idea what to think, but I knew I had to make sure my sister was safe. Luckily she was. I found her hiding in the rafter above piles of yellow insulation where there were no plywood. While the creature was distracted eating my friends, I grabbed Son's arm and darted toward the scuttle amidst the sounds of flesh being torn from the bone by teeth long and sharp. When we were safely below, I folded up the ladder and sent it back into the ceiling. "What the fuck have you done, son?" I yelled, not even thinking about my sleeping parents. I should have been more mindful, because suddenly a light turned on. Standing before us was my horrified father, bundled up in a fluffy white robe. There was no excuses to make, since my sister's hands were caked with blood and her hair full of the insulation from the attic. "No," was all he said. I was horrified. At least he knew how to go about it. During the commotion, I hadn't noticed that there were footsteps of some sort of creature in my attic, like hooves walking on plywood above. "What have my kids done?" my father said, disappointed. Disappointing my father was like a punch in the gut. But I had to stay strong in order to rid my family of the devil my sister had spawned in her stupor. Speaking of my sister, she never spoke after that event. She simply walked slowly and robotically back to her room, locking the door behind her. Causing the deaths of her friends was not something a girl her age should go through, so I understood. It was up to me to help my dad now. "It can't get down here as long as that scuttle is up. Your mom saw to that," he told me. I was so confused. "How did she—" "There's a lot you don't know, and no time to explain. Give me a moment. While I change, I need you to go down to the basement and find the sage sticks. I keep them in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet." Confused and in a panic, I ran down to the basement and found the dank-smelling sage sticks in the steel cabinet my dad had mentioned, and then I darted back upstairs to find him and my mom, both wearing strange outfits. My father wore flowing purple silk robes with a matching cape and a hood that looked like something from a superhero movie. Mother wore the same, but in place of purple, she wore gold. "What the fuck is going on?" was all I could say. Ignoring me, my dad yanked the sage sticks from under my armpit and went up the scuttle. followed by my mother. I went up to go after them, but when I got halfway up the ladder, my mother drove a hard boot into my chest and sent me falling to the floor below. The ladder went up into the ceiling behind her, and I laid on the floor, confused, miserable, and in pain. A roar of the dark tongue ensued above me in 3 different twisted voices. There were also far more morbid sounds, things I could not explain even if I tried. It all felt and sounded so strange. Not strange in the finding a $20 bill on the ground kind of way, but the sort of strange you feel when you feel like you're being watched by some phantom onlooker. The calamity got more and more disturbing, and more tongues joined the demonic choir that had become my attic. I sat against a wall, staring off into the darkness, with eyes full of tears. After what could have been hours went by, there was finally silence. I jumped when the sound stopped, and with a mad fit of courage overtaking me, I rose quickly to my feet and yanked the string which brought the attic's ladder down. Slowly, I climbed. Not knowing what I would find when I reached the top, my heart pounded fiercely. When I peeked my head over the edge to the top of the ladder, the attic was empty. There were no bodies, no parents, no demons, no pentagrams. All that remained was the old tome. I slowly approached the open book, and when I saw the page, I nearly croaked. There was a rough sketch of a portal, and the top of that page, which was in a language that I did not know but I was able to read, said, "The gates of hell." That was last week, and since then there had been no sign of my parents, nor any further activity. My sister remains in her room and has become like a zombie. She comes out to get food, but that's it, and it's rare that she even does that. My parents were some kind of witches or demon slayers or something I can't comprehend, and I thought they were just average old parents. I feel sick and haven't gone to school at all in the past week. I feel so lost, so clueless. If anyone reads this, please help me. That was a good one. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed reading it. The attic. One of those things that's just naturally vague or unknown, which often makes kids a little bit afraid of it because they just don't know what it's all about. So it's really dark up there. One of those irrational fears. I know for a fact I've had irrational fears. One that sticks out is when I was 8, probably younger, I'd say ages 6, 5 or 6. For a while, we would go to my aunt's house quite often. And there was a long period of time where, in order to use the restroom at her house, you had to go to the other side of the house. And the thing with that was you had to enter a hallway to go to the bathroom. But at the end of that hallway, on top of a podium, at the very end against the far wall of the hallway, there sat 2 clowns. And I remember seeing them up close one time because you couldn't pay me to look at them up close again. At that time in my life, I saw them up close and they had remnants or blemishes of smeared paint, as if they were started out as clown dolls. Like they were supposed to be like dolls that were clowns. And they had the loose limbs. So it wasn't one of those firm position ones where they just sat still. Their legs dangled and hung. Their arms were always crossed in the same spot. But I'd go down to use the bathroom. I'd know they were there, and I'd try my best to just pretend they weren't, close my eyes, and run. It was the first door on the right, so it wasn't a long run. But to me, it was a mile away. I'd have to slam the door, do my business, and then swing the door open and run out, because I was convinced 100% that those things were out there ready to stab my kneecaps or bite me. There was nothing you could do to convince me otherwise. They tried. They're just dolls. They're not going to do it. Yeah, screw you. I know what they're doing while I'm in the bathroom. You're not going to tell me otherwise. I know. And that was the mindset I had. And then they eventually took it down when they realized that I wasn't going to. Nice of them to do that. They realized I wasn't going to get over that fear anytime soon. But good memories. Good times. Anyway, again, I enjoyed reading that story to you. I hope you enjoyed listening. Please like, subscribe, comment. I love seeing comments. And you can join me for the next story. Until next time, this has been Hero's Edge.